It began with a sound that sliced through the sterile silence of Seoul National University Hospital like shattered glass falling onto a marble floor. It was exactly 2:17 a.m. a sharp, haunting cry, not the sound of a machine, not a monitor, but a man crying out not only from physical pain but from something far deeper. Something ancient and buried. Something that had been waiting for this precise moment to rise. Veteran nurses on the night shift paused mid-step, exchanging uneasy glances. One dropped a clipboard. Another froze in place. The hallway, usually filled with soft shuffles and distant beeps, now pulsed with an eerie tension, and then came the footsteps, fast. Frantic. Unmistakably panicked. A dark figure turned the corner, hood pulled tight, mask obscuring half his face, but nothing could hide the desperation in his eyes. Where is he? The voice cracked through the corridor like thunder on glass. Where is he? I need to see him. Now. It was John Jungkook. No one expected him. Not there. Not then. That he was supposed to be filming in Busan. A commercial shoot. High budget, global. His schedule was airtight. Controlled. But none of that mattered now. Because when he heard the news, whatever fragment of it reached him, he abandoned everything, without security. Without a manager. Without warning. He ran. He didn't wait for clearances. He didn't sign in. He ignored the startled calls from nurses and the cautious hands of security. He moved with the force of someone chasing time itself, and time was running out. Inside room 217 the scene was something no one could prepare for. Kim Taehyung, V of BTS, one of the most composed, magnetic presences in all of South Korea, was no longer the poised figure in polished boots and a sharp salute. He was curled tightly on the hospital bed, arms wrapped around his middle, trembling. His face pale. His lips cracked. His body drenched in cold sweat, and he was whispering one word, over and over again, Hyung. Jungkook halted at the threshold. It took only a second to assess the situation, but the impact hit like a punch to the gut. He stepped inside without a sound, his hand already reaching for Taehyung's. The warmth he expected wasn't there. Hyung, he whispered. Taehyung's eyes fluttered open, hollow, red-rimmed, yet somehow still holding that same gentle fire that fans had fallen in love with for a decade, but that fire was fading. The secret he tried to bury 3 days prior. Taehyung had exited the military base to a sea of cameras and cheers. His final salute had been picture perfect. His posture, stoic. His smile, soft but proud. Only a few sharp-eyed fans noticed something wasn't right. A faint limp. A slightly slower gait. A tightness around his jaw, but no one imagined that beneath that carefully crafted image was a man unraveling. According to insiders, Taehyung checked into the hospital under an alias. Quiet. No entourage. No announcement. He wore a beanie low over his face and kept his gaze downward. It was supposed to be routine monitoring. But it wasn't. He had known. Weeks earlier, during his final medical clearance, he had undergone an MRI. The results were flagged. But he told the military physicians to delay all disclosure, to his company, to his family, to his members, until after he was discharged, and so, for days, he carried a secret diagnosis inside of him, alone, until his body gave out. The letter in the pillowcase. What no one saw until it was nearly too late was the letter. The nurse on night duty later admitted she'd seen Taehyung writing earlier that night. Not on a phone. Not on a tablet. On paper. He was writing by hand, using a black pen with trembling fingers. The page was crumpled, then flattened again. At one point, he began to tear it, stopped, then folded it and tucked it under his pillow. Why? Was it a confession? A goodbye? Hours later, as his pain intensified, Taehyung whispered only one word, under. Jungkook heard him. With trembling hands, he pulled the pillow apart and found the half-torn letter, creased, stained with ink, and wrapped around an MRI report, and whatever he read, it changed him. Jungkook's collapse. He didn't cry at first. He just stood there. Silent. Stone-like. His eyes scanned every word as if he needed to memorize it. As if he wanted to erase it by sheer force of will. Then he sank to his knees. He gripped Taehyung's hand like a lifeline. You idiot, he muttered under his breath. Why didn't you tell me? Why would you go through this alone? A nurse who witnessed the scene stepped out of the room in tears. He kept saying, "We wouldn't hate you. We could never hate you." Over and over. Jimin arrived at the hospital 2 hours later, having received a message from Jungkook, "Come. Don't ask. Just come." He didn't expect the letter. He didn't expect the news. He didn't expect to find Jungkook pacing outside the room like a man being chased by ghosts. Without speaking, Jungkook handed him the folded paper. Jimin read it once, then twice, then again. By the third time, his knees buckled. He fell back against the vending machine, unable to process it. "No," he gasped. "No, Tae, why didn't you tell us?" Jungkook knelt beside him. Placed a hand on his shoulder. "He thought we'd hate him," he whispered. "He thought he wasn't worthy of our love if we knew." And that's when Jimin began to cry, not softly, but the kind of tears that come from the deepest part of the soul. The kind you don't recover from easily. The truth in the MRI. Though much of the letter remains private, one line has been confirmed by someone inside the medical team. "If they knew, they'd never look at me the same again." The diagnosis? A progressive neuromuscular disorder. Nothing immediate. Nothing sudden. But slow. Unforgiving. It could take his ability to dance. Possibly his ability to sing. Eventually, even more. He knew, and he didn't want to burden them, not the fans, not his members, not even himself. Hybe's silence. No press release. No statement. No tweet, nothing. The company has gone silent. Some say it's out of respect. Others believe they're still figuring out how to handle something this delicate. Armies have begun compiling evidence on social media, with threads tracking subtle changes in Taehyung's behavior over the last year. A limp during training footage. A strained note in a live stream. A prolonged absence between updates. It's all adding up now. Point 1. Last promise before leaving the hospital, Jungkook reportedly said something to the head nurse. "He asked me to do it." What it is remains unknown, but what followed was just as mysterious. Jungkook vanished. He didn't return to his set. He didn't go home. His phone was turned off. His staff didn't know where he went. A black SUV picked him up outside the hospital and drove into the night. The chapel. Jimin remained in the hospital chapel. Just before dawn, he lit a candle. He sat in silence, the folded letter still clutched in his hands. No words. Just stillness. Like he was waiting for something, anything, to make sense. So what happens now? Will Taehyung recover fully? Will Jungkook return? Will Jimin speak? Will Hybe release the truth? No one knows yet, but what is clear is this: behind the stage lights and music videos are men who carry the weight of the world, not just for themselves, but for each other, and sometimes, even stars fall down, just so they can rise again, stronger, truer, and more loved than ever. Until then, we wait for news. For clarity. For healing, but most of all, we wait for that moment when Taehyung opens his eyes, looks at the people who never left his side, and finally realizes, he was never alone, not for a single moment, not ever.